From the ex-Crip drug dealer who's currently on $1 million bail on a charge of accessory to murder.
Now, today's story is one of the most craziest intersections between rap music and real-life murder you'll ever hear. A moment where fiction blurred with reality, and the most talked about rapper on the West Coast ended up in the middle of a homicide case.
We, the jury in above entitled action, find the defendant, Calvin Brodus.
This is the real story behind Murder Was the Case, and how Snoop Dogg almost lost his freedom, his life, before his debut album even dropped. In the summer of 1993, Death Row Records is taking over. Dr. Dre's The Chronic has changed the sound of hip-hop forever, and after appearing on Dr. Dre's Nothing But a G Thing and stealing a show on multiple tracks,
So Dre, what up, dog? We gotta give them what they want.
the world was waiting for Snoop's debut album. The pressure was real. But Snoop wasn't just a rapper, he was also tied into the streets. On August the 25th, 1993, Snoop Dogg and his bodyguard Mckinley Lee and a couple of homies are chilling in the studio in Palms district of West LA. That same night, Philip Woldemarium, a 20-year-old man reportedly affiliated with the Rolling 60s Crips, ends up dead, shot by Snoop's bodyguard Mckinley Lee.
We heard some commotion downstairs, and I'm thinking, well, I know Snoop didn't go downstairs without me. What? You know, so I heard some drama, and so immediately I grab my gun and I'm getting downstairs because I heard some drama. But as I'm going down the stairs, Snoop is like behind me, right? So I stop at the end of the stairs, and when I get to, it's like the little bridgeway, I see a guy leaning out of a car. He can't see me, and he's just barking back and forth with one of the guys. I just saw the light-skinned face, right? And then I saw a gun come out of the window. So at that time, there was no threat. You know, Snoop was right here. It wasn't anything. It was just real quick, you know. So I immediately take off and I get Snoop upstairs. So we rush him upstairs. I'm trying to calm everybody down. The situation was diffused. So now it's time to, you know, we got to get back to the studio, actually get to the studio.
So as Snoop was driving the vehicle on the way to the studio with McKinley Lee in the passenger, Snoop realized that he forgot a recording device that he needed for the studio that day.
Who's driving?
At the time, it was Snoop.
Snoop driving?
And it was Snoop, me, and Sean Abrams. They were in the car. Okay. And so we're on our way back, and actually we take off and we start going on the strip, and he's like, man, we got to get the DAT player. And he's like, so we turn back around, but as we're coming down the road, we see somebody in the middle of the street kind of flagging us down. And I remember the guy leaning out of the back seat, but I remember the front seat dude, he was like a heavy-set guy. He had a heavy-set face, you know, so I remember that. It was a quick scan. I remember that face in the guy. And so he's flagging us down the middle of the street, so Snoop kind of pulls over, and he's like, hey, man, I'm sorry, dog, it's my fault. Man, I remember him saying he just didn't take his medicine, he was tripping, I'm sorry. I remember that to this day. He didn't take his medicine. We'll come to find out that he was diabetic, right? We pulled over, and at the time my gun, I pulled over, when he had pulled over and Snoop pulled over, I take my gun and I set it on my lap, and Snoop was in the driver's seat, and now I'm looking to my right because the guy is backing up, and as he's backing up, I have my gun on my lap. He's backing all the way up to the cement, and there's a slight incline on the hill. And he kept backing up and backing up, backing up. So now he's approximately, I'd say, 15, 20 feet away from me, because we pulled over to the curb. We weren't parked curbside. I'd say we're maybe like 1.5 feet, 2 feet away from the curb. So he's backing up. He's like, oh man, no, he be tripping sometimes. Man, we know you are, man. It's my fault. I'm sorry. And all of a sudden, the bushes flutter, and you see somebody run out of the bushes, and it was Philip Woldemarium at the time. He runs and he tries to, you know, he gets to his guy grabs him. It's like, man, no. He pushes him away. But when he pushes, he lifts his shirt and he reaches. But soon, when I saw him start to reach, that's when I took my gun and I fired. Now you have to remember now, like I told you, there was like a little incline. My hope, I wanted to hit him in the lower part of his body. So as I'm aiming, he's turning, And as I'm aiming here, I fire, pow, 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 pow.
Snoop and Lee fled the scene in a black GMC Suburban. The LAPD launched a homicide investigation immediately. But here's where things get complicated. Philip was unarmed when he was killed, and the prosecution believed this wasn't self-defense, it was intentional. They argued that Snoop and Lee left, came back looking for trouble and escalated a verbal beef into a murder. Even worse, the murder weapon mysteriously vanished after the shooting. No gun, no fingerprints, it looked suspicious. Police brought Snoop in for questioning, and by the time he appeared at the MTV Awards in 1993, he knew what was coming. The news blew up. Snoop Dogg charged with murder was headline gold for the media. This was supposed to be his moment. Doggy Style, his first solo album, was set to drop just months later, but now his future was on the line.
Fuck the police. Fuck the police.
Death Row Records doubled down. Suge Knight made sure Snoop kept working, kept filming and kept rapping. In 1994, 1 year later, as Snoop prepared for trial, Death Row dropped Murder Was the Case short film. It dramatized the themes of the song: death, rebirth, sin, survival, all while Snoop was facing real murder charges. This wasn't just art imitating life. This was life under indictment being flipped into a marketing campaign. By 1995, the murder trial of People v. Calvin Broadus began. The courtroom was packed with reporters, fans, and legal experts. The prosecution argued that the shooting was not in self-defense. They said Philip was shot while retreating in the back and posed no real threat. But the defense had their own angle. They said Philip had pulled out a gun earlier in the day, threatened Snoop and his crew, and that Lee was protecting his client. It wasn't murder, it was instinct. Even Snoop's lyrics were brought into the courtroom as evidence. That's how blurred the lines had become. His music was being used against him, while also feeding his fame. But who exactly was Philip Woldemarium? Born in Ethiopia, raised in Los Angeles, Philip had reportedly joined a local Crip set, but accounts of his reputation varied. Some said he was a low-level hustler, others said he was trying to make peace that day. According to Snoop's crew, Philip had made multiple threats earlier. He'd circled back that evening, allegedly reaching for a weapon again, and that's why Lee reacted. The twist? No gun was ever found on Woldemarium, and no gun was recovered from the scene. That missing piece would define the entire trial. The prosecution argued that without a weapon, it couldn't have been self-defense. Why shoot an unarmed man in the back? But the defense countered with witnesses who testified that Philip had indeed flashed a gun earlier that day. They claimed Snoop and his team had a reason to be on the edge. They weren't looking for trouble, they were trying to avoid it. The star of the show was Mckinley Lee.
So when I talk about the story, sometimes internally I get choked up because no matter what, still, irregardless of life was taken. So for me to recant this every single time, and there's no disrespect to you or anybody in the world, but all it is everybody wants to know what happened, what happened, what happened. And it's hard for real ones to talk about it. You see, real G's, we don't talk, man. We don't talk about things like that. We don't glorify negative stuff. There's no reason for it. So when I talk about this, I'm talking about this to give you hope and to give you inspiration and to educate you all on the truth.
He testified that he genuinely feared for their lives. Even Snoop took the stand, rare for a celebrity at that time, to defend his version of the events. After months of testimony, cross-examinations, and media mayhem, the jury went to deliberation. At this point, the case could go either way. If convicted, Snoop Dogg would definitely face life in prison. But on February the 20th, 1996, the verdict was read.
Calvin Broadus, not guilty of the crime of murder in the
Not guilty. Snoop and Lee were both acquitted of all major charges. The courtroom erupted. Outside, fans cheered, Snoop's mother cried, and Suge Knight was probably sat in his car with a big cigar in his mouth smiling. And just like that, Snoop Dogg had beat a murder case.
And now that his trial is over, he's finally able to speak his mind about the feelings and emotions he had during this long case.
And at the time that the jury was reading the verdict,
I left it in God's hand, Abby. That's why I looked so stone-faced. I didn't have no expressions, you know what I'm saying? It was all in her.
But the aftermath was complicated. Snoop's public image took a hit. To some, he was just another gang-affiliated rapper who got lucky. To others, he was a survivor who stared death and prison in the face and came out clean. The trial changed Snoop. He'd gone from being golden boy of gangster rap to a man on trial for his life and somehow came out of the other side. The trial also became a blueprint, and to this day, Murder Was the Case is considered one of the most powerful storytelling tracks in hip-hop history. Years later in interviews, Snoop reflected on how close he came to losing everything. He said that trial changed him forever. It made him rethink who he kept around him, and more importantly, it made him value his freedom. The man who once rapped about murder for entertainment had come dangerously close to seeing how real it could get. So that's the true story behind Murder Was the
do you feel
Case.
he was doing his job?
No, he wasn't doing his job. If he was doing his job, he would have called the case off. That's doing your job. Seek justice. He knew we was not guilty. He knew that. He knew Mckinley Lee acted in self-defense. Mckinley Lee has never, ever, ever, ever been involved with gangs. I have. Mckinley Lee has never been involved with gangs. He was the trigger man. So what's the whole case about? Oh, it's about Snoop Dogg being gang affiliated, but Snoop Dogg didn't pull the trigger. He drove the car away from his bodyguard acting in self-defense. But if you look at them, they don't care about that. It's Snoop Dogg. We some low-life district attorneys that don't have no name, that don't got nothing going for ourselves. If we wash him up, we large. We bigger than Chris Darden and Marsh and Clark and all of them. We gonna be large. That's what his whole mission was about. He wasn't focused on the case. All he was focused on was washing me up.